Alrighty, welcome back, guys. We're gonna go and do our week, let's call it week 3 to 4 update. We're gonna kind of rate the drafts, go through how the games went, give some thoughts, and do our adjustments to our tier list here of power rankings. So this was our 314 uh, rendition from the last video. We've got this one ready to go. Just gonna change this to 3-4. And then yeah, so this will come out today, hopefully, maybe tomorrow, depends on when Superfast is available to upload this. But yeah, without further ado, let's make some changes and let's look at the state of the league here. Okay, so we left off um, against White Lotus, Blackthorn, and Battle Rift Assassins, a 2-0 there. We're going to go into our first one, which is TDP taking a 2-1 victory over Korean Rejects. I think this is relatively what people expected for the most part. People think, and I also would agree, is TDP's a pretty decently good team. Um, More so maybe in the middle to the higher tierish. Um, Still have a lot of proving to do. They haven't had an insanely hard schedule quite yet, to my knowledge. Let's kind of pull up their year or their season in review. Yeah, they beat Blackthorn week 1, very expected, and then Battle Rift Assassins in week 2. And then week 3 was this game, I believe. Yes, Korean Rejects. So a lot of unknown. Haven't really played anyone great. This is definitely their best opponent that they've played against in Korean Rejects. And Korean Rejects so far has played some of the better teams in the league, I think. They did lose handily week 1 to Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity. And then they lost to, or I think they might have won. Yeah, they did. They did beat Merc Gulag there, and then yeah, that makes them 1-2 on the season. Then they play JRGC tonight. We get a lot of more information about them uh, after that game. So yeah, let's look at it. Let's see if these games match up. So is this the Jinx Mundo? It's not. That is Jinx Mundo. Jinx Gwen. Gwen. Warren Barris. Okay. All right. So this appears to be the first game, if it's all in order. So here's game one's draft. TDP here goes Jinx first pick. Oh, let's do our bans real quick. Looks like we went pretty hard at the mid laner. Mid laner plays a lot of very standard comp choices here. Syndra, Victor, and then defaulting onto the Oriana after both of those are taken. And then they were able to take away the jungler as well of the Lilia. Very strong pick. On the side of KR, we were worried about a Mumu. I would be as well. Mumu is a fucking menace. Mordekaiser, which has been Pizza Pasta Mafia. I think one of his pop off games came from that. Excuse me. And Zyra. So not bad from either side so far. TDP leads off with the Jinx, and then we respond with Nocturne Ori. I really like that. It's a combination that works a lot like obviously our Oriana Jarvan. I do think it's a little bit harder to execute and sync up because it's obviously Nocturne can kind of come in from everywhere. And it's a bit, I think it's a bit harder, but it takes some practice. This team's been around for a bit, I think, with each other, more of friends. So should have some synergy there. Not bad at all, though, if you can pull that off. And we respond with Dr. Mundo and Galio. At first, I was kind of thinking, it's like, oh, Mundo is kind of a weird choice here. Like, why are we taking top lane? But I did notice that it's actually going jungle, and it probably potentially is a flex pick for TDP that we haven't seen. But I think Mundo would do pretty well into Nocturne. Nocturne doesn't really kill tanks all that well. Oriana doesn't really kill tanks all too well either. Um, so not bad there. He kind of gets to kind of scale up. He needs some strong lanes to kind of facilitate him though, because Mundo is inherently weak early. So not Nocturne does win early, obviously. And has a spell shield to get rid of one of those what are they called? Cleavers. I don't really see how Nocturne ever really does lock down and kill Mundo in the 1v1, assuming Mundo also takes Ghost in this game. Yes. Yeah, so it's a hoodie special right there, kind of pulling out something new to look at. I don't hate it. And then we Galio, another one of those because it does pretty well into Oriana, and then uh obviously if support of KR plays Galio, that's a pretty great combination of champions of Nocturne, Ori, and Galio. Not saying that they would do it, but those three ults all on top of each other is quite crazy. You're not really surviving that. um, it's also a good pick into Oriana. I like it. Does well into the Nocturne as well. You kind of have to be the first one to use your global though. If you're gonna do global versus global against Nocturne, it's better to be the one that's proactive and making the play first uh, with your global rather than Nocturne's going first because Nocturne's ult will take they'll it blinds you from the entire map, so it's hard to obviously use your ult or TP if you're a top laner or a mid laner when Nocturne ult is active. So yeah, as long as as long as we were doing that, it's pretty good. Varus is the response. I know Prevail's been playing that a ton on KR, so uh, yeah, must be a really big comfort chat for him. We take out, interestingly enough, um, we take out Seraphine Lulu, and then we pick Nautilus. We already have some good shutdown with Varus as well. Go with the R. Like if you land that on a Enchanter champion or even the Jinx, they probably die. Especially with the follow up from Nautilus, that's you know pretty insane. Three forms of CC, his Q, his R, some slows on his E, but also his passive auto that roots. Um, it's kind of weird that you're banning enchanters just to play the lane aggressively because I think you would rather want those types of enchanters bot lane to punish because you're drafting a pretty decently aggressive lane. Instead, TDP ends up getting the rel out, kind of hammering down on more tanks. Obviously, Seraphine Lulu does pair up with Jinx pretty well as a bot lane duo if you just survive the lane. But with Rel, it's you can still win and you can play aggressive in this lane, but it's obviously harder to kill the Rel unless the Rel's playing terribly in lane, so and jumping in on you and stuff like that at non-opportune times. Speaking of that, Rel's interesting. It's not my favorite pick into the Nautilus here. I think you could have gone with more of like a Braum, in my opinion, but I don't think Rel's awful. Um, and then we have Peace to Pasta Mafia, big Jax player, which is really weird that it wasn't banned as well. He's been playing a lot, really popping off in the first two series. They must have been really confident in this Gragas selection, which I mean I would be too if I'm a Gragas player. Pretty dominant laner top side of the map. So yeah, I mean not a bad draft from either side. I don't really love Mundo Jungle. I don't think you can get a ton done easily, especially if a team that are playing against um, is more coordinated and will play to, shut you down and utilize how weak you are. Because I don't think you really have insanely strong laners. Gragas should have um, Prio topside if played correctly. Bot lane with the Varus and the Nautilus probably gets Prio. You have some Prio mid with Galio more than likely, but it's not anything crazy. So I don't really like TDP's draft in this one. And mostly it is for the Mundo. I think if that's something else and that extends their damage profile a little bit more, I think I like it a little bit more. But yeah, I don't really love Mundo Jungle personally. But let's see how it shaked out. And it is going to be a TDP game one win. The Mundo did pretty well here. Their entire top side did really well. I don't even know how that's possible. Um, yeah, 11-1 Jax and a 7-1 Mundo. Something went very wrong for KR in their top side here. um, yeah, it looks like Balling couldn't really get anything done against the Jinx and the Rel either. I'd be curious to actually see this game. I don't know if it was streamed or not, but how this game actually happened because I'm very confused how you lose lane on Gragas against Jax. Um, yeah, and then how this Mundo got so far ahead, it just became such a problem. But yeah, that's a pretty convincing 34-minute win for TDP here. They do outscale quite heavily by the 34-minute mark, but you would expect KR to have gotten more done early. Not even having a single dragon is a little weird. Prioritizing six grubs, not something I would say you should have done because you have a strong side bot that can get a lot done. Oh, yeah. Really weird decision. I don't know how you don't get a dragon with this comp that you drafted. Six grubs is a very bad, poor decision. It's a bit overrated. If you look at the stats, two dragons is always going to beat six grubs as well. And you don't really have any split pushers on your team. Um, it's really shocking that you gave up both of the dragons. I get not wanting to give up six grubs, obviously, to a Mundo and a Jax and all that and the Jinx, but get if you're happy with 3 and 3 and then 1 and 1 drag at minimum, I think. Um, so yeah, they just didn't quite push their early game that like I thought they could have and should have. But yeah, let's move on to the game two, I believe. Yeah, game two, and this is a TDP loss. Interestingly enough. So yeah, TDP running it back on blue side. Um, Jinx for the first pick. They go harder at the top side bands because Pizza Pasta Mafia really popped off and has been popping off. I think they started realizing it. So yeah, we have Jinx ran back the Varus. They blind pick Ornn. It's interesting. Um, I don't really know KR's top laner all too well, but at that point they probably just wanted him on something safe. TDP responds with the Gwen. Great counter. Winnable for Ornn for a while, but it does get harder as the game goes along. And then they get a Nautilus. Pretty decent pairing. We're going back to the Urel again. Not the worst. So yeah, we have I think it's the same bot lane matchup, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, they just switched supports. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Uh, yeah, then we go back at the top laner. Wait. What? Oh, I guess Hoodie plays Gwen Jungle probably. So they never knew where this was going, and they just kept banning top laners. But these are really bad bans, actually, though, because Ornn beats Renekton, and I don't think does the worst in the Urgot at the end of the day. Okay, KR. I get that you probably were confused by where this Gwen was going to go, but Gwen shits on Ornn. She's staying topside, in my opinion. I think it'd be very dumb for TDP to actually switch out Gwen. So this is a free two bans for TDP, who probably knew that where this pick was going the entire time. So yeah, we have Vi locked in, not bad. It's a lot more lockdown, which I think is very helpful to have more of, especially when enemy team has Jinx. Gwen can never not have lockdown, or enough lockdown, I should say. So not bad there. Need your damage profile a little bit higher on this last pick, and they go with Talia, which is not bad. There's a decent amount of dashes as well. TDP rounded it out with Ivern and Yone. The Ivern's a bit weird in Vi for a lot of reasons, and then Yone also another one of those weird ones, but they did need 80 mid, it looks like. It's a good blind, I suppose. Yone's pretty busted. So the Yone pick I won't really fault much. It's just kind of hard to play into the amount of CC that KR really has. And I bet on the next screenshot we'll see that this Yone didn't do much. Um, Ivern can, if you get Gwen to a raid boss status, they win this game. Which I mean, Peace to Pots Mafia probably probably can because he's been a raid boss these last few games. So uh, yeah, but in terms of this actual jungle matchup, like Vi and Ivern, very hard for Ivern to play the game when Vi is Ring and queuing it all over your face and borderline one-shotting you eventually. So let's see how this really worked out. Um, Looks like their bot lane actually got pooped on. From the looks of it, Crockbot ran it down on this Nautilus. Prevail went off on this Varus pick, and this Rel did amazing. 26 out of the 28 KP. That is nuts. Please know had a great game to win here. Uh, what? Hamel has IE Yuntao into a GA. I'm sorry, Hameler, but no, just you can't do that. Um, yeah, I get you probably are like, oh, like it'll still be good for the lockdown. I can survive it. No, you'll just get one shotted and then get one shotted again right when you come out. You're playing Jinx. Like your mistake is it's already sealed. It's not getting any better. That does not help in the slightest. Poor build, I think, in there. Um, if they use everything on the Jinx, hypothetically, um, Gwen and Yone have a chance to win the fight there. Ivern can also do a lot to help save Jinx in some of these scenarios as well, giving her an E or a redemption right on where Vi is Ring is nice. Vi and Tilia are, or as a combination, are pretty nuts with each other as well. Because obviously that R is holding them in place, and then Fishing for Honor just has to throw the W and the E down, and bang, they're pretty much dead. Any sort of easy point and click CC paired up with Talia is always just a free W and a free kill more often than not. Um, but yeah, a lot, kind of what you'd expect a little bit. Um, I thought the jungler could have been much more aggressive in this, or at least something like I would say Moo would be actually great here, but it's banned. Yeah, maybe like some sort of 80 bruiser or another tank because you do need some CC. They have so much lockdown that the Ivern and Jinx are just not going to be able to move. And if Nautilus ever hooks in, he's probably dying because which is which is what looked like it happened. Because he can't get out. There's even if he's going to try to kite back out, he has to. It's an all in to the death every time he hooks somebody. Um, there's no getting out after. But yeah, uh, an interesting draft from TDP to say the least. A good draft for KR champions wise. Not great on the ban department, but I guess they were really worried about it. Which okay, sure. We're gonna move on to the game three. This should be a TDP win pretty convincingly here. They do, in fact, flex the Mundo. All right. So KR brings out Ornn again. Why not? Um, TDP responsive Jinx Alistar. So we had three straight Jinx games for Amel. Honestly, I would give him Jinx again if I saw he built GA third item. I would definitely. But yeah, KR running back, pretty much the same comp as that they had, switching out the Rel for the Nautilus. Bans are the same for each side. We get the brand out for TDP, which looks like this was going jungle for Hoodie. So yeah, Hoodie plays a lot of unorthodox or not as meta as it is right now, like stuff. Obviously, we saw a Mundo, and then we saw a an Ivern, and now we see a Brand in game three. So he kind of can play anything and everything under the sun. Whether it's good or not is a entirely other discussion. But Brand Jungle always is like a team fight monster to say the least until they fix that abomination of a champion. Truthfully, yeah. So yeah, TDP they banned these junglers out, the Vi and the Nocturne. Why not? Useful bans there. Gwen and Yone also banned out. Both are pretty good into the Ornn. But TDP did something interesting here. They just locked in the Mundo, which I think, I mean, honestly, with the brand pick here, you probably don't know where that's technically going. You would maybe assume it's Hoodie, but it could really be going mid as a like in all honesty, it could go mid. So TDP had a nice little like uh kind of interesting little spook for KR, especially if you don't really know these players in general. Like they maybe don't know Hoodie's pool all that well or Hoodie as a player. So yeah, that I mean you could think that the brand's gonna go mid. So they probably didn't know that this was like Mundo was gonna go top or um jungle either. So it's kind of it's kind of just a big mess on the side of KR, just because of that brand pick alone. So well done on TDP to at least make them think about it a little bit, maybe second guess themselves, and really utilizing the flex that of this Doctor Mundo at the end of the day. So well done there. We see a Zyra jungle and a Corki come out. KR has the ability to kill tanks in this one. Like Corgi's not the worst at killing tanks, and Varus, depending on the build, can really pop the tanks as well. Um, Zyra obviously has the Leandries, so there's some consistent damage there. They've got some lockdown again. So KR goes with these really kind of heavy lockdown comps. What kind of beats this is Wombo. My first opinion would be Wombo combo because it doesn't really matter your lockdown when you all get caught by three or four ultimates and the fight is done after that. So But yeah, I wouldn't want to play like a comp that only relied on one person doing damage. So TDP really did do well by kind of making their damage profile a lot more wider. So they have the Jinx that can carry, they have the Brand, they have the Mel that does a lot of damage. So those three champions right there is a very good amount of what's it called, damage profiling, and it's enough to take out this whole comp. Even if one of them is eating all of the lockdown that KR has, even two of them, um, Jinx can obviously do a lot, depending on who they actually go for in the moment. Obviously, two of them can also build Zanya's, so definitely helps. But let's see how this game ended up for them. Interestingly enough, because I actually don't hate KR's comp at all. Okay, so Hamel, we built correctly on Jinx. Good job. Their bot lane did a lot better this time around. The Alistar is a lot better into Nautilus. So I actually kind of even forgot to talk about this doesn't really make sense for KR to really do against Alistar. Can't really play engage tank into Alistar when you have a counter pick, especially when you're playing blue side. You're counter picking yourself, and you don't really have many other times to counter pick besides the one pick you get on this back end. Uh, so kind of a wasted pick, I think. I forgot to kind of mention that. So I'm not really surprised that their bot lane did a lot worse this time around. The Mel Corki lane seems seems boring, honestly. At the end of the day, probably a lot of farming going on there. And then yeah, the same with the Ornn and the Mundo. Mundo is just going to eat like Ornn can't really kill Mundo, so it's a nice change of pace for Pizza Pasta Mafia. Not really playing like all these tanks and stuff, but how he's punishing a tank is just playing a 1v9 tank that just runs over everybody and won't die in a in any sort of manner if they don't have enough damage or anything really going on to him. They're not five man focusing him when he's ahead. He's just gonna run over everybody and heal up everything. Especially with uh, these two items that increase a lot of the damage he gets, Hard Steel and Unending Despair. Kind of a nightmare. So yeah, that's just free scaling there. Good on TDP for that. I did like their draft pretty good, but yeah, KR's wasn't like unplayable in this game, but they just kind of shot themselves in the foot in a few times, and I think a lot of that kind of came from the support and maybe mid lane picks potentially. Um, but yeah, they're trying something. Both teams kind of draft a little bit unorthodox. Like we're seeing a Zyra jungle here. We saw Mundo jungle. We saw Brand jungle. We saw um, Ivern. So there's a lot between these two teams that's a little funky. That teams are going to get a have to take a good look at when they play them in the future. But yeah, this was a decisive one for TDP. And it looks like the Pizza Pasta Mafia was just a monster and couldn't be contained on the top side of the map again. It looks like he does roam quite often as well. Because, and this mostly in game one and game three is what I'm really referencing here. KR Commando Ops kind of like lower on the deaths, so he's not just dying solo over and over to Pizza Pasta Mafia. Ugh, excuse me, I'm a little under the weather, a little cold, but it's okay. So yeah, he's got 9 kills there, and he's got 11 kills in this first game. 5 kills on the Gragas. He was team fighting really well or skirmishing really well to get his lead. So very interesting to see how he plays. I can't really wait to see this team more in action, either on stream or playing against them when our time comes as JRGC. Um, but yeah, KR gave it their all here. I think a lot of people didn't really expect them to even take a game here. But a 2-1 for TDP with one just bad game, bad draft, potentially referencing this one, um, was kind of the difference, and that happens sometimes. So overall, good week for TDP. I did spend a while on that one. In terms of how I want to update their rankings now, taking a bit on them. I do like TDP staying right here. Um, I don't think I can really put them above to the good tier quite yet because of just the competition level that they've really played. I really want to see how they perform. Let's see who they even play this week. They play Azale, so this is actually a pretty good week if they can get a nice win on Azale. They're the real deal, I think, because obviously they're one of the teams that are sitting, pretty squarely up here, 3-0. They're having a good start, but I think a part of that would be just the amount of you know lack of what's the word, lack of teams that they've really played that are that good. So KR was a decent little workup. They'll have their hands full with White Lotus's Zale. I could definitely see them winning that series. Yeah, I'm not going to put them above anybody. What I would put TPO below them, the new version, obviously. I would put TPO down here, so they would be ahead of them, but I do feel comfortable putting every one of these other teams above them. And as far as KR goes, I don't think they really move either. Like, I think they are still better than Ag. I would potentially move Elegy up, but we will do that, I think, later on in this video. But I think they are better than a lot of these other teams, so really no reason for these teams to really move. So let's move on. And we're going to go dropping point, Knights versus Agrip Barambe 2-1. No draft rules here, so let's look at how this happened. It's a game one victory for DPK. Jimmy really went off on that Viego, a champion that he has spammed in the past quite a lot. Not really a champion he actually gets through many drafts a lot, but they ended up banning the Amumu instead. So he was able to pop off there really handedly. It looks like DPK got a lot of what their comfort picks are too. Spartan getting this Victor, Ace on set, Lurka on the Aphelios. I think it's the second most played outside of Caitlyn. In terms of what Ag does, though, Hemo, I'm not really sure if he plays like all that much Malphite. Malphite does do decently into set, it's not bad. Nocturne also does okay into Viego. Ag, don't eat bees. The Ari coming out against the Victor. Um, I've I've seen Ag actually or don't eat bees play this matchup, and I think he played it against Ray in the week before, and it was interesting. Like I think he plays this Ari actually quite well comparatively to other Aris in this league that we've seen. Um, Definitely a bit better. Makes the champion kind of, it makes me eat my words about the champion a bit. Whenever he does get on this champ, but he does have a good. He has a good wits about him of getting ahead in lane more so and trying to transfer leads. Um, it's kind of the same issue that we've been having with Ag though, in terms of their jungle and their bot lane not being up to par. And it's, or even in this game, honestly, the entirety of the team, we have a really good mid laner and don't eat bees, but the rest of the map just not really playing all that great. We've seen some pop offs from Ag Major, some decent games, but Hemo hasn't had the greatest time so far this season. I think this is Germrat's second time subbing in, and this game didn't really look very good. And then, yeah, perfect build. I don't really like this pairing with Jinx and Pantheon as well into the uh, Karma and the Aphelios. Aphelios is very strong right now in the ADC meta if you have played him. Repeated buffs for what seems like a year or so now. He's finally getting more attention. And then, yeah, Karma can survive that lane as long as it's not, they don't play dumb here, which just looked like it happened. And it looks like Jimmy was also camping that lane as well. So, game one, DPK. Not really sure what more you could really do if you don't eat bees, but nonetheless, a good effort. But we do have a great game two by Agra Parambe. And it looks like they actually put their other jungler or their starting jungler listed, Brayer, um, and they did really well. This is actually it's actually funny because I was just saying, oh, like they need these other players to kind of step up in this to really make Ag, you know, the team that we saw them as last season, a pretty decent team after all, right? And that's what exactly what happened. They ran over Lurka and Chaz Michael in the bot lane here. Jimmy couldn't get much done. Ace on the Ambessa couldn't get anything done. Makes sense because there's a Poppy and a Vi in the game. So yeah, Ambessa's not moving. We also have Grasp. I don't understand this. I'm just gonna go off a little bit quickly here for the top laners here. If you're into a tank, like a good tank that already uses like Grasp as like their main keystone, you don't want to short trade with tanks ever because they're really good at it. Most of them are just cooldown based, right? So you put like so for instance, Poppy, once her Q is utilized and her auto on her passive, she W's and uses her speed and grabs her shield and runs away. And you can't follow her because you can't re-engage because you are Mbessa, and every time you use an ability, you dash. So, um, obviously this was a nasty counter pick on Hemo's end, but like Grasp is not going to help you survive this lane regardless. So you might as well stay on Conquer or stay on a super greedy rune because you're not going to be able to kill anybody later on with that as well. And like he used it on Malphite and stuff in game two. I I don't know, like it is like the stacking of the health build, so maybe, but if Malphite's being played correctly here, you don't really get to interact with Malphite, especially with the Arcane Comet build. You kind of just get Q poked over and over, and you're really not doing much else in terms of that. You're not really getting much grass procs off there. You won't get much grass procs off here against Poppy. So I don't know why you wouldn't just go with a more aggressive rune set, one that actually scales you into the game. Um, I don't know. That seemed really troll to me, but it is what it is. Spartan had a good or decent, I should say, Anivia game. Looks like he gave Don't Eat Bees a lot of trouble there, interestingly enough. But yeah, the rest of the map really showed up for Ag Riparambe in game two. And look at that. They pulled this game out. That was really impressive win because they got I don't know if this is like obviously it's not like a beat down, I should say. It's a 45-minute game. But at the same time, it's mostly just bees while you were in that first game. This looks so much better, and I hope that this trend kind of continues for them. I know they don't win this series, but I I I've said this for the last two seasons. They need someone else on this team besides bees to carry the load a little bit here, and this team would actually be pretty nice. So this is a nice change up here, I guess I should say. But yeah, good on Agra Parambe to make a 2-1 series here. We've been getting a lot of those lately. Okay, and now we have game three, and Ace is back on the set. Takes the Conqueror this time. He's into the Hemo's grasp. This is perfect. I'm glad he didn't take grasp into Maokai. Because, yeah, you could beat the shit out of Maokai with Conquer and the healing, the extra damage. You need that to really help carry or win the 1v1. And it looks like it was just straight top diff in this last one. Another one of those games where Hemo did not play very well. And he's been a really good weak side top laner last season, but he hasn't performed well so far. So, yeah. And Bees going off again and his team losing. Like he really did punish the shit out of this Ari in the mid lane. This is what everyone else's Ari looks like, by the way. Spartans 1-8. um, a bit of a honestly a troll draft in my opinion from DPK as well. Samira does not need to be here. And it's the third game in a row we have Karma out. Karma's okay, but we did see Karma get punished uh, really handedly by another poke lane when they had the Caitlyn Lux out. Obviously, they dealt with the Lux, but Seraphine in a lot of ways also does exactly what you would Karma does in lane and has a ultimate ability that is insane, to say the least. So yeah, I don't like Samira in there. I don't really like Karma. Obviously, I don't have the draft rules to really see when this was taken. Don't really like the Ari. They finally were able to get the Amumu out for Jimmy, but Ace was the real um, difference in this game, and maybe the jungle as well. But I guess Hemo just if Hemo just doesn't die in his lane or give any sort of advantage over, and I could honestly I could see this is Brayer getting into the bait of wanting to gank for Hemo and like they could 2v1 this eight like the set. That just doesn't happen. Like a champions that like you have like Darius, you have Set, you have Mordekaiser's a big one. They'll just 2v1 you if they have any sort of hands and if you don't play the fight perfectly. Which honestly I think did happen once or twice in this game, or Jimmy came and counter ganked while that was happening, and then they completely lost it. If they actually just did nothing topside the entire game, I think they win this pretty handedly. Because it doesn't look like bot lane did awful until the introduction of their top lane came into the mix. So yeah, they need to figure it out a little bit there with Hemo and the jungle spot. Um, they've been kind of in and out of the lineup as well in the jungle, so they've been utilizing a lot of subs on Ag. So partly could be a reason of their early season struggles. They have played some pretty good teams. Like Rivals, pretty solid. That's a 1-2 right there. So and then they played against Azale, probably their worst series of the game, but but Azale obviously very strong. Um, did lose that one, and then they lost against Driving Point Knights here, but they did 2-1. So they're fighting in every series that they've played. Having 2-2-1 losses, not bad, especially when you're in the East. It's actually pretty meaningful to have these two losses right here. I know it says that they're tied in 11th here, but my guess is out of these four teams right here, when they play their week 3 game, at least, if not all of them, will be only having just an extra 2 losses, which means for free, Agra Harambe, without even playing another game, Agra Harambe would be in 7th because of the 2 wins that they have. Um, as long as obviously none of these teams win an actual series this week and or get a 1-2 from TPO Bronze Avengers. But yeah, they're not in a bad spot actually. They can more than likely pull it together when they play more of their divisional opponent. I think they had a really tough first 3 weeks, and they could have won a series or two of this if they played it a little bit better, drafted a little bit better, or if their full roster wasn't around. I think that was the case against Azale. They were playing with two subs. So yeah. Um in terms of where I'm gonna put Ag, again, I think I'm keeping Ag right here. Elegy is gonna go above. That's the only team, but I think they are better than all five of those teams for now. And then who is the team that they just played against? DPK. They won. They took care of business at the end of the day. A bit sloppy, in my opinion. I am going to keep them up in the favorites for now, though. They do still have to play Oversoul Oasis, and then I think that happens tonight, actually. So this will actually be a very telling series tonight, in my eyes, for both teams. um, and then, yeah, dropping point, where are they at? Oh my gosh. Okay. Battle Rift Assassins week 5. Not you won't be able to get much there. Probably should be an easy win for them. But yeah, they are looking like they're gonna start off at worst 3-1 to start the season, which obviously in the East is a big deal when wins are hard to come by so far. Gonna keep them up there. So yeah, that's our second 3-game series, and we are 45 minutes into this game, and we have yet another 3-game series with Elegy and Rivals. This one looked like a banger though. Let's hop into it. There are some draft lulls for our convenience here. So this was game 1 with Sejuani on Elegy. This is how it is. Did Elegy play it again? Okay. So yeah, that is game 1. Cool. Let's look how it actually happened. So LG loses in a 45-minute banger. It doesn't look like they were too far behind ever in this one, or they were at least able to pull it off and make this go late. So 45 minutes, down by 4 kills. Looked like a really interesting close game. Um, Initially, what I see, JFK on this Urgot and 2 tanks normally means very good things for JFK. And then we have not a lot of utility for rivals drafted here. Uchi on the Diana, and then Razors on the Ari. That's the second Syndra that we've seen today that's taken it pretty handedly to the Ari. And yeah, you can't really do a ton when you're playing. Also, not a good. Oh no, he does have Leandries. I thought he skipped Leandries. My bad. This is good to get the good build. um, but yeah, not the best matchup into Sejuani, but like also not the worst. I would have liked to see them have more utility at lockdown and CC in this pick. They don't really need technically damage. But yeah, we will go look at that draft because probably can tell you a bit more. Okay, so LG is going to take the Sejuani. We responded with Jinx and Diana. Fair enough. Jinx, one of Husky's better champs. Diana, not the worst in the Sejuani, not the best. Could have been something they were trying to pair up. But at the end of the day, they didn't really pair up Diana with anything that was really that great for her in this game to really pop off. And Uchi, as a jungler, more known for utility picks and tank picks rather than these carry picks. So interestingly enough that they took that. I know they don't have a coach. Not what I would have taken for him, but it's okay. And then we respond with Aphelios, like I said, very strong. And then we break the flex, or just, I guess, the immersion of that the Zac jungle could be the jungle, right? When you draft Sejuani and Zac, you know one of them is going to go top lane, and Urgot does really well into both, and most tank shred champs do. So, yeah, I don't love that for Elegy. It's a bit goofy, a bit fun. I do like it. This draft a lot different than what we've been seeing. So, and it did almost work out late game because this comp like has five later, extremely great because of Syndra and Aphelios, especially when there's not a ton that rivals can really do to get on the Aphelios and Syndra besides Diana are. That's pretty much it. But if you survive that or you engage first, nothing's really happening. Or and you just don't have to get and also don't get fucking out of position for Ari ult charm. That's your win con if you are LG and just scaling this out. That being said, really weak lanes and a really weak jungle for skirmishing. So I could probably see LG falling behind early everywhere but mid lane. Uh, Brahm's an interesting pick with the Jinx. I guess they're worried about engage and he's good disengage. It's not. It's fine. I guess it's not the worst. LG did target a lot of rivals stuff as well. A lot of ADC bans in this one. We respond with Syndra and Rel. LG, I think, could have probably gone something else with support, considering they already have so much go tools and utility in their first four picks. The Rel was kind of just overkill for that. I think they could have had a better damage profile and had something else here or like an enchanter that goes along with the Aphelios, especially since you only see Braum and Jinx. So the enchanter pick here would make sense because you're kind of scaling a lot for free. And then we have Ari and Syndra. I don't really like Ari, so whatever. It is Razors for their sub. It's pretty decent from what I've seen in the past, but hate the champion, so that's all for me. Game two, LG really took it to him in this one. Wow, okay. So LG loses game one. Probably could have won that game from the looks of it. And then game two, we have LG just putting a raffle stop on him in 24 minutes. Okay. What in the world happened here? Husky and Sauce kind of lost it a little bit pretty hard. Which is really interesting because like Zaya and Nautilus aren't really that big of counters to Jinx and Braum, so this must have been just either they got ganked a bunch by the Kane. Also, JFK ran it down against Hades in the top lane. That's doesn't happen very often. The Gwen matchup's pretty nice into Mordekaiser as well. Very low key counter if played correctly. Uchi again on this Diana. Uh, I'll be honest, it's not playing it correctly. You should be tempoed out of your ass if you're gonna play a champion like this, because you need gold, you need to snowball, you need to kill secure, and only having and not really getting that done is a big problem. But they also end up on a comp that again doesn't really have much utility outside of the Braum, which is all they had in the first game as well. I don't think this is a good draft, and it's a lot of it can be blamed on the jungle pick. And then you could say maybe a little bit in the mid lane pick as well. Like you could have found something there as well that offered more utility, but it's mostly going to be on jungle because Uchi plays tanks more than Razors would play utility mid lane. So they need to figure that out a little bit. They can't have four carries that all need a lot of gold to really succeed. Just not a winning recipe. Um, they need to figure this out a little bit, I think, and either put someone else. It doesn't even matter if you want to keep Uchi on this um, pick, then you got to figure it out somewhere else. In my opinion, it's poor drafting. Um, but yeah, something really badly happened in this bot lane that because like I don't think that's supposed to happen with Zaya Nautilus lane versus a relatively safe Braum Jinx lane. Um, and then yeah, JFK obviously a rare diffing in the top lane pretty handedly. Looks like mid lane was mostly a snooze fest. Liar not doing a ton in this one, just sitting back and CSing. Razors couldn't really do much. So yeah, I mean this is just an LG. I think it's just mostly an LG draft diff, or not draft diff, but um, just playing better. Because like I said, Zaya and Nautilus is not supposed to do that to both sides are not supposed to do that to each other. Let's just be clear on that. This is this is supposed to be a pretty boring lane at the end of the day because both sides are playing extremely safe, or should be. Um, so yeah, the cane is a bit weird for Elegy. Obviously red cane when you get there is pretty nice, and there's four melee, so it does end up being a decent cane red cane game on the bright side. Azir, one of Liar's better picks as well, gets through. Not like it did anything in this game. Was not the difference, but um, yeah, really good counter pick. I think Yon and Mordekaiser are fine picks there. The Brahm's a fine pick into the Nautilus. I think the Jinx is okay. So I would really, I actually really only blame this draft on Diana. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a prio pick either. Um, it's not very blindable in my opinion, and I don't even know who you would go on if you're playing Diana. Zaya just ours, Azir ours, or just shuffles away. You can't really one shot Gwen unless you're super ahead, and same with the Kane. And your target is definitely never Nautilus. So yeah, interesting. Like there's no play going to be made with Diana when her laners are Yone and Mordekaiser. There's no setup. There's no nothing, and that's going to carry on to the team fights where you need Kane and Gwen and Azir and all these champions. They need to be CC'd or they just destroy you, and that's exactly what happened in this game. So let's see if they adjusted in the third game. Oh my god, they did. They locked in the abomination that is Mumu. They learned. Okay. Was it enough though? Doesn't not look like it. It looks like LG did take this game 3. Um, the bot lane ran it back with the Nautilus Zaya again against Ash and Leona. Ash Leona I actually think has a slight edge there as well, just because of the support matchup, and then Ash has a lot of range, and Zaya needs kind of people to walk into her to be very successful. And the only two champions that really do that on the enemy team is Darius and Amumu and the Leona. It's not bad. Zaya pick's not bad. Let's go look at when it was picked. Also, might have some more context. It's not bad actually. I don't know. It's just what it's not just. It's more for Leona than it is for Ash. You could say. Is this actually new? By the way, was new. Interesting. Okay, so Nautilus in the first of the rip. Both teams. I mean, not what I would prioritize. Maybe no flex picks for Elegy really on the board. Although you're not really banning anything when you're on the side of rivals that could be first pickable. It's a little bit of a weird Nautilus angle, so you're kind of asking for this Leona pick that does really well in the Nautilus, obviously. Ash is a pretty standard blind, one of Husky's better picks. The Zaya just popped off, so why not? And it goes well into Leona. The Nunu blind is definitely interesting. They must have seen something with that where they wanted to spam gank somebody. So they found a weakness in a lane that does not ward very well, and a lane that they can really run over with Nunu ganks because it's all this champion really at the end of the day offers is really powerful ganking and objective stealing and or securing, I should say. Um, but yeah, so I guess solid. Not something you typically see in comp, but we'll see how it worked out. The Moo is um, the counter here, which is fantastic. They almost lost those first two games. Diana didn't look all that great in either of the games. Put him back on tanks. So now they go from a composition that had zero utility to a lot of it. And then they followed up with even more utility in the Anivia. Perfect. I actually really like Rivals' third game draft. Anivia also does really well in a Nunu because of the wall. You could just wall Nunu and the engage stops. So pretty nutty there. Syndra for the counter on the Anivia. Probably just a farm lane, I would assume. And then we blind Scion. Not bad. Scion's pretty decently broken. Darius is a pretty nice counter, though, to Scion. Scion does outscale, but yeah, it's kind of a tough early for Scion. Let's see how this kind of game really worked out. And yeah, top lane, JFK tried to get ahead. Looks like he ate a few Nunu snowballs, and it looks like bot lane ate a few Nunu snowballs. Razors didn't die in this game, and they lost. You playing for KDA or something, buddy? That's a little interesting. But yeah, mid lane, pretty much a snooze fest from what I can see. This game was kind of won and lost in bot lane. Yeah, it shouldn't be, but it is. It is. So yeah, you could say jungle diff in this one as well. JFK just not able to do enough on this game to really carry. And that's kind of the story in all three of the games. Besides the first, he did more than the others, but had his teammates playing better in this first game as well. But yeah, these other ones just not enough from anybody really. And if JF, it kind of is a struggle for Rivals if their bot lane continues to struggle. I know Sorrow and Freelance not bad. The Elegy's actually quite highly ranked in Solic wise after all the changes they've made. It's been a long time since I've actually updated them on the list. So I have been wanting to move them up because of their roster changes. They also bring an interesting level of draft as well. It's a little funky, but at the end of the day, it somewhat works. We'll see how many teams will punish them for doing this more than Rivals would, but let's go ahead and rank these two, fix these. All right, so yeah, Elegy is due for a pretty massive one. The reason I haven't done this in prior videos is because they haven't been playing games. So this is like their second game I think they played on the season. They're now 2-0. Yep, 2-0. So yeah, I think in terms of Elegy, I think they go to about here, if I'm being honest. And I think Rivals falls back a bit. I think this is a massive sort of regression for them in this series. I don't think I think they might have been trying something in drafts a few times, but they just didn't put good comps together. They have individual great skill between all five of the people, but they're not, in my opinion, I think they're just not really fundamentally understanding how to draft a comp to really win. It sounds like they're playing a lot of comfort. They're not really playing to their strong win cons in the top side of the map. So until they kind of fix that, they're not going to do great against the better teams in this league. And because like right, we had Agra Parambe, they 2-1 in week one. Awesome. That's probably their best win, I believe, of the season. And then yeah, 2-1 on the Keg Killers. Keg Killers, not a bad team. So they were battle tested for these first two games. And then yeah, another 2-1, but this time in the favor of Elegy. They haven't had like a clean uh series yet where it's been complete dominance all the way through. And then they also went ahead and lost to Coach's Tyranny. Like I said, a team that is really good at drafting. We will get to that. We'll see how Coach's Tyranny did beat rivals in this one. But um, this is kind of what I'm talking about. That's kind of what I called. I forgot that they even already played their week four game. They've got a nice week five bye though to really practice and prep and get back on track because they do need a lot of that if they're going to beat Oversoul Oasis, especially if Oversoul Oasis has their shit figured out by then as well. So yeah, that's going to be my rankings right there for both of those. It was a nice LG win. Honestly, they probably should have 2-0'd in this game, in this series, if they hadn't gotten so greedy in the first game with the amount, like, yeah, it's just not too much scaling comparatively. And I don't really know how they didn't win this first game, truthfully. Something must have happened, a miracle team fight um, later on in the game. So that is that. Let's check out these final two series. So we got JRCC versus TPO Bronze Avengers. This is our first time looking at the new and improved TPO. It didn't obviously start out great for them. I don't know if this was a stream game or not, but oh boy, did we struggle in the top and jungle. Holy. Um, I have a lot of questions actually. Holy crap. And I don't think these are draft lulls. They're not. It's unfortunate because this is actually one I would love to break down at an individual level of how this happened. But yeah, the Kennen being 10-1 and 9, Fusion finally having another pop off game. One of the highest rated players in the league from Soul to Q. And K Dash also putting up another strong performance, this time on the Nocturne. And I think those two are very the difference makers between them winning and losing a lot of series. If the enemy team has a competent top jungle, they struggle quite heavily from what we've seen so far, and the rest of the team hasn't been able to pick up the slack really between Buckby, Karma, and Rex of like a second or third carry, something they can really rely on in those harder matchups. But this time they actually broke through and they were able to impact the game in a positive level. Doesn't look like the bot side of the map for JRCC was that bad either. Buckby into the Swain. I don't think that's a great matchup for Lysandra at the end of the day. Yeah, probably not. Down 100 CS there. So Buckby did struggle in this one, but the rest of the team was able to kind of carry him out. And at the end of the day, this is a Lysandra that's playing. I mean, when you lock in Lysandra, you are kind of playing more for your team. You're a big utility pick. Um, and I'm assuming a lot of these R's went onto the Vi, or if you were ever engaging onto the Kog'Maw, which, yeah, that's pretty much all of their damage sources. Because if you kill Kog'Maw and Vi, Swain does a decent amount of damage, but nothing crazy, especially with how people have been building him as of late. Um, Looks like the only dying hope of TPO was this Swain pick. I don't really like. I don't want to say I hate their draft because I don't really know how the. I don't see the draft law obviously, But I'm very, very curious to see how Kennen got so freaking fed. Like, were we just? I guess they were trying to gank top lane quite a bit, from my understanding. Like, and it just these 2v2s just didn't work out. That is like the big thing with Nocturne is when you're facing an enemy team Nocturne, you really have to be cautious of like what side of the map he's on, because if you make a play or do something on the same side that he is, he can just be there instantly to, make it from a 3v2 gank to a counter gank that's 3v3. And then you can lose the game quite heavily off that, which is what looks like K Dash was doing quite effectively, especially since Vi has, the 9 kills. So it looks like he was kind of just mirroring where Vi was. Vi wasn't aware of this and pulled the trigger on a few plays, and then K Dash came in and punished. Yeah, this Nocturne performed really well, along with the honestly everything on their team did quite well, um, for their role that you would expect in the game. Um, it's not a bad draft on the side of JRCC. A lot of you have some CC, you have a big team fight ult, your lanes aren't that bad. You have some scaling, some late game here from the Sivir, playmaking in the Nocturne, Enchanter and the Lulu. It's not a bad. It doesn't like look like a great comp, and it honestly lacks. The one thing it does lack is more frontline. So maybe you could say Fusion could have been on something else, but at the end of the day, they didn't need it. They didn't need to be. Um, they ended up not needing any frontline here besides the Nocturne. But that's like the only really concern I can really see of their comp. You could also say Rexmus could have been on a tank or something too to really kind of round it out. But in terms of like how much utility and stuff they have throughout their team, it's a decent amount. They've got a good amount since you have a Lysandra in the game. You have Polymorph. You have everything that Nocturne does. Sivir, the big team fight ult from the Kennen, who obviously got ahead, which is not good for Kog'Maw when if you're just getting one shotted by the ult. Um, but yeah, not much more to really look at here. Looks like they kind of just didn't under TPO didn't understand the composition in front of them, and it also is a bit of an ugly one. I'm not gonna lie, I think it's a bit of an ugly draft on their end. I don't know how we drafted it quite so any of it really. Their bot lane might be the only thing that really makes sense. Swain maybe, but yeah, the top side of the map, yeah, I don't know how the heck that happens. So many Kennen kills for what? What was happening? Anyway, whatever. But anyways, moving on, it's another pretty decisive JRCC win over their TPO. So we've got a 26-minute game this time, so a lot more clean this time around, a 10-minute difference. Fusion gets on that signature Renekton. I think it is a bit of a hard matchup into Cho'Gath, but this Cho'Gath build is pretty whack. um, what are we doing? I mean, I don't know if they are playing for fun. I don't know. It's it just seems a little weird, that build in particular. Also, the Volibear build is quote unquote trashy. Oh god. What the hell is that? What the hell are both of them building? This is okay. Um yeah, Cataclysm trying to hold it down yet again, and this I think that was the only only thing that was kind of keeping him in. But it looks like Ari's or Buckby on the Ari did quite well in this one. Didn't die, made some plays. They got super aggressive bot lane, Draven and Nautilus, which is really awesome to see because they drafted Ezreal and they drafted Seraphine, so yeah, they just kill them on repeat. It's kind of nice. So JRCC really nice. They played an early game comp with the big impact ult. They actually finished the game in 26 minutes. I did think in my last video I said something about them having a good foundational comp, but they didn't finish the game quick enough. This time they did because but they didn't even need to this one because I think they actually still outscale just because of how awful the draft on the side of TPO was. But uh, yeah, it looks like they were trying to take away all the Ori options as well when you have the Jarvan and Nocturne. R's there. Yeah, because Buffy does play the Ori. Yeah, really weird series. Not a great look for opening for TPO, but JRCC is one of the, I would say, better teams in this bracket. So not overly surprising, but let's fix some of these rankings. Yeah. So yeah, JRCC, I'm gonna leave them right where they are. I think that's a really good rating. I think that actually reinforced how of like where their rating was. And then this was obviously about old TPO. I think new TPO, after what I've witnessed right there, oh boy, I think they're, oh god, I don't want to like overreact, but like I almost want to put them at the top of this, like right here. But I could also put them at the bottom or of right here. Oh god, I think I'm gonna do it. Jeez, I mean, this might be mean or an overreaction, but I can't like look at this and say that that this was like it's deserved. I'll just say that it's deserved. I'll eat my words if we lose to them. I don't even think we play them, but that's yikes. Okay, moving on. Coach's Tyranny and Rivals. We do have draft lulls. Love that. So yeah, let's see how these went. First off, pretty convincing games both times. Not surprising. Let's see. On the side of Rivals, we banned a lot of the. I think this is actually solid bans. You went after the Amumu, you went after the MF. You did have an opportunity to take the MF and maybe the Amumu, technically. Um, it would have been interesting to see them actually tried that. But Husky must have been feeling the jinx after last series. But I do think an MF would have been a little bit more up their alley. And funny enough, they kind of banned themselves out. And then taking out the Lulu when you were going to get the Jinx, a little weird as well. On the side of Coach's Tyranny, though, we banned the Zyra. That's a sauce pick. The Acel must have been for. Is this Razors playing again? It is Razors playing again. I haven't really known Razors being an Acel player, but maybe it was just something that they were concerned about. A little bit of a weird ban here. Questionable, maybe. And then the Vi. I don't know if Uchi also plays that. This is still Uchi, right? Oh, it's not. It's Bardo. Bardo Husky. Okay. So they actually subbed in a jungler here, Bardo, who likely probably does play by. Okay, makes sense. Except the Acel. um, give the Jinx, sure. We respond with Ash Braum. Pretty typical. Like I said, it's in past videos, it's pretty punishing if with the amount of CC and utility you can really have out of this lane. And Coach's Tyranny has good laners in the top and mid to really carry a game on more stuff. Obviously, Ash isn't known to be the main carry of every game. unless extremely far ahead. Uh, so it looks like they kind of just put him on more of a utility. Rivals responded with Sona. Sona is one of the worst supports in the game for lane. Obviously, if you get out of lane even, you're so much farther ahead. But the point is, you can't really survive lane, and it also makes getting jungle. It also makes getting dragons and objectives nigh impossible because you can't roam with the Braum, and you can't. You don't really have ever position to like even leave lane. And the amount of pick that Coach's Tyranny already has out, you can't really leave lane. So I don't really like the Sona pick. I get you would want to draft an Enchanter to punish Braum because Braum doesn't do amazing things into Sona, but when you have Ash, this actually gets a lot scarier because Ash has more of the engage than Braum in this lane, and Braum can actually follow up and get on Sona, and Sona really can't do anything about it all that often, especially if she eats an Ash arrow. So yeah, not my favorite. And then we blind the Ari. Got to see how that one worked out for him. 3, 4, and 2. Okay, cool. Um, I guess people like to blind her. I think she's blindable. Again, weak, but whatever. Then we have a Lux who, I mean, honestly, I feel like Ari should win that matchup. Like theoretically, being more mobile and you just have to dodge. You can use your R to dodge basically Lux's entire kit if done correctly, and then land your stit. But you probably just don't have enough damage, which is the whole problem of Ari at the moment. Um, so yeah, I don't know about that as like a great counter to Ari necessarily, but probably more of a comfort pick for. I would assume we did not. We used Menghao again, so the same 5 starters. Um, we beat the odds. I'll say that. Not something I would particularly love, but it worked out, and it looks like it did very good things for them. So I think that's more of a knock on Razor's sorry than it was a Lux. But yeah. Then we ban 2 of the junglers that Bardo likes to play. Cool. Rivals goes with Malphite Zinzao, I guess, because not much beats Urgot really. And Malphite is like one of the rare champions that can do more. Mordekaiser does okay, but yeah. Skarner into Poppy, not much really to be said there. A Poppy pick's actually a little weird because they don't really have much dashing. Like, yeah, it stops Ari, but meh, eh. I don't think it stops anything for Skarner or Urgot because Urgot's unstoppable when his E goes. This could actually be wrong though. So I won't keep talking about that one. Mordekaiser does well here. I think it's a skill matchup with Urgot, and then does well into Skarner. Yeah, that's just a tank shredder. It's a pretty basic comp that has a lot of like it's basically all just relying on Ash and Lux to land an ability and pop somebody. So Rivals really doesn't have like an identity of their own on their team. And Coach's Tyranny has a pick comp at the end of the day. Probably one of my least favorite comps that they've actually drafted so far, I'll be honest. It still makes sense to me and all that, but yeah, not necessarily my favorite. But Rivals, I think Rivals did a way worse draft here. Didn't really get anything that they really technically wanted that was like worthwhile on their counters on the blue side, or that like made sense like to go together. So either blue side, you want to make a team comp that's really blindable, or that all goes together. And then also you want it to be a little bit countering to things that you know, because you when you're on red side, you get theoretically three counter picks. Blue side, you get two. Um, didn't really feel like we got much out of it each of the times that we were up for rivals. So well done, I think, from Coach's Tyranny. They at least put something together. Let's go on to the second game. Let's see what happened in this one. Another convincing win, both in about 30 minutes or less. Last game of the video. JFK's Garen and a Gnar does not sound very fun. Rocky on the Jarvan. I got a Kali here. Downfall Realm. Or Downfall in the Romeo on MF and Rel, which really good pairing together, obviously, and the J4 ult. Really like that. I can already tell I'm going to like that draft a lot better. Also, a little bit of synergy with Jarvan and Gnar. Let's see how this happened. Okay, so Coach's Tyranny, they did exactly what I thought Rivals actually should have done on blue side, is take this MF first and build a comp. It's kind of what you need to do on blue side. Um, they go ahead and they do the MF. They respond with Ziggs. They did not ban anything else of Huskies, so Husky had the Kaisa, the Ashe, the Jinx up available. We wanted the Ziggs. Makes somewhat sense. A little bit better into an MF in lane, I guess, if you really want to get that piece of the composition behind. And then Razor has decided that he wants to blind pick the Yone here. And then Coach's Tyranny says, hey, we play a Kali. I've actually played this against Razors, and uh, a lot of the same results in this same matchup. So, yeah. Then we get to pair it with the Rel. We get a Leona out, which isn't terrible. Some lockdown for the Akali. Can R, MFR, technically. Not bad. Rivals takes out one of JFK's champions, or in the Urgot. I know it's Raining Wolves as well, I think, plays this. And then the Malphite. And then we take out, on the side of Coach's Tyranny, we take out the Poppy and the Zac, which makes sense because we have a lot more dashing going on here and a lot more engage. You want the Rel to be able to get in. The Amumu's locked in, takes it away from what Coach's Tyranny could have done. I wonder what they would have done. Obviously, they still have both Jarvan and Amumu up, so both really good at the end of the day with MF and setting all that up. I just want to know which one they actually preferred. Like if they thought they were going to get the Amumu or the J4, and they had to just settle on J4. And then we blind pick Gnar. I think this is a really bad counter pick from JFK. Uh, yeah. So it's one of those where we just didn't get a much out of our R5 here from JFK's champion pool. It's not even all that depleted, truthfully. I don't. They had Coach's Tyranny didn't ban any of his champions. They banned, and then only the Urgot's done from Rivals. So Garen seems like a really weird pick here. Because at the end of the day, what does Garen do against any of this? He's just gonna get Jarvanard and die in the Wombo combo as well. Can't flash it, or every time he doesn't have flash, doesn't really do all that well into Akali either. And then obviously Gnar kind of bullies him if you play Gnar correctly, and looks like Raining Wolves knows how to play Gnar. So yeah, not a fun time. Again, I think drafting for rivals needs work. I said this in their matchup the last time, but this is kind of a team this is the type of team I'm talking about that will expose them and run them over for this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's a lot to look at, a lot to learn from this, and I hope they do because they are an exciting team to watch and be around. They're pretty competitive here in the West. They've got a lot of work to do. They've got some important matchups coming up. Obviously, they played a really good coaches tyranny team, so uh, not to scoff at them or anything like that. And obviously, they lost to Elegy in the 2-1, so not bad there either. If you are going to lose a series, I've always said make it in three at least, just to get the most out of it. You never know when that tiebreaker will help you out down the road. So, yeah, let's go and um, do these final little projections here. I think I will leave Coach's Tyranny where they are. Kind of proved a lot here. They knew how to play. They know how to play a lot of counters, and they blind pick, and they still draft really well. Bands were a little bit scuffed here um, in this last series, but I don't think it's anything crazy to worry about. They've done a ton of things that are good. I would say they're definitely the best drafting team we've seen so far this season. So keep them right there. I'm tempted to even put them ahead of at least RT, but I'll leave them there in the contenders tier for now. And then for rivals, I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back here um, and have to kind of reconsider. I think I'm going to put them behind RTPH right now. RTPH at least showed a lot of fight against two of the top contender teams in JRGC and Iraq Tactics in their 2 games of the season, even if they don't have a series win yet. I think they have some promise. I could see rivals being slightly ahead of them right here, but I can't put them any lower or higher than what I think they are right there. So I think it's a good one right there for them. A lot of learning to do from the draft, from what I've seen um, in their 2 series in this video. Definitely the biggest losers of this video, LG being the biggest winner. Outside of that, not a ton of movement. I guess actually TPO could have been a pretty big loser as well from the tier list point of view. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. We will kind of go over a little bit of player stats before we exit. I think the only game that's not updated from the looks of it is this Coachless Tyranny and Rivals game that happened yesterday. We do have some more games coming on today, so should be a fairly busy Thursday, and we should learn a lot. So let's look at some of the top laners here. Not surprising, a lot of people that we've seen that have been popping off. Uh, Oversoul's Merit Lodge. Don't know if they're going to come back or not from IRL things, but yeah, it's kind of what you would expect from a lot of the top laners and everything thus far. JFK took a pretty big hit here. They've played 9 games already, which is crazy. I think per game, though, he does still have the highest kills per game, even over Pistapats and Mafia, which is an interesting look and has more assists. Does die much more for all these top laners on the list. So a bit of a concerning trend. He's actually, I think, third most deaths per game along with that. So JFK is going to winner. I think he put on display today that he's either going to win hard or lose hard. There's no in between. So yeah, most of everything you would expect on to here. Yeah, let's move on to the jungle tier list here. I got myself on top in the KDA department. Probably won't last too long here. W WLBT Blackthorn, is it? So I think this is from their one series against Bra. Okay. So they actually played really well. I probably did highlight this in another video. Elegy Shade as well, coming out of nowhere. I think they had a different week one starter. Yes, they did. Um, so both jungles played well for Elegy. Hoodie's up there, not surprising. Rocky's been on a tear. Pazanski's getting back up in the mix after a rough week one. I still haven't seen AIED play in a little while. K Dash up there with a lot of games played already. 8. Um, I know Uchi didn't play this many games, so we'll have to fix that one. It should be 2 games on Tabardo. Um, Kind of interesting that PP so small is down here. Would think he would be a little bit higher into this region, but not a great start to the season. And yeah, nothing too crazy else to look at. A lot of what you would expect. We have the mid laner Liar playing here, 14.6. I don't think this is because of how he's good he is right now for Elegy. I actually think it's quite the opposite. I think he is one of the more least impactful mid laners, and I think you can see it in his KP um, comparatively to some of the other more dominant mid laners in this league. So it's kind of, yeah, the average is 67, so it's 12% lower. Um, I think he plays a lot for himself or KDA wise. Won't die very often. Not going to be the reason that you lose, but I don't think he's the driving force for Elegy. I think this is a bit of a scuffed, inflated KDA set in this kind of thing. So I'm curious to see how he'll do against a lot of these other top mid laners in the weeks to come, because a lot of these guys are all in the West, as we've seen and covered. So Crayson being in there, good to see. Big utility, um, big utility type of mid laner from what we've seen so far. See him tonight. Nicholas is going to switch over to Merc Gulag from Rivals, so we'll have to see. I think so far the switch to Razors hasn't been an improvement for Rivals, but they did have 2 of their, I think, harder matches from when Nicholas played, so it could be just a rough stretch for Rivals at the end of the day. Nick's cat also kind of fell off a little bit. Need more games to really kind of get in there. But yeah, nothing crazy. A lot more balanced than it was at this time last season. Um, Again, another Oversoul Oasis player towards the top, like we had for Meritage, Merit Lodge or whatever his name is, from the top lane. I don't know if Astral will come back or not, which is interesting. Traxon has been great through 8 games. I think he's more of a KDA as well player, but does seem the team does seem to play around him a lot more, and he is involved in all the plays. So I think it's more of a slow moving team who don't necessarily have high kill games. Um, just when you play for G Sports, just haven't hasn't they've played a lot of, out of their 8 games, they've played a lot of on average their kills per game from both sides goes quite down. I wouldn't be surprised if it's dead last in games that they're involved in. But that's not a bad thing. Just a style preference. They like to play slow. Nothing else really crazy. A lot of ADCs playing really well. I think this is a much, like, we had a really good ADC class last season, but I think this season have a lot of very talented um, 80 carries outside of Attila. Um, so this is one of the better areas of the league, in my opinion, the deepest. I think mid lane's a little not as deep this season, interestingly enough. I think the jungle pool did get better from last season, but it's not incredibly deep. Top lane got much better all around, more and more for that. And we'll move on to last but not least with supports. Decoy's been fantastic through 4 games. Romeo's been great for coachless. Lot of high KP percentages here at the top, highlighting Kane or Kane. That bot lane's been working well as of late. They had a rough start to the season, but really coming together. Um, yeah, a lot of interesting. I think this is a pretty decently strong as well role. So if I had to rate them out of all 5, I would say I think the ADC pool is the best, followed up by top, then support, then jungle, then mid lane is how I would rank the depth, the a lot of the depth of all these roles and how they perform so far and how I feel about um, the amount of like quality players in each of the roles. So yeah, that will do it. An hour and 40 minutes, not quite the 2 hours, but almost. So I'll see you guys after we get some another group of games in, and I should have a player power rankings section coming out after week 4 games all kind of come to an end. We should get a lot of these done today, or at least in the next couple days. And then obviously some of these games are also going to be made up in the next couple days as well. So I will get a lot better of an idea of where to rank some players. And I did decide that I'm going to do week 4, week 8, week 12, all for player rankings, and might do like a playoff edition as well when the time comes from who all made playoffs. Might do that. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed and learned some, and comment below if you had any disagreements. So, all right, have a good day.